Hello, everyone. Hello, Masterpiece.
Hey, hey.
Hope everyone's had a great Sunday today. It's been a good day for me. How about for you, Masterpiece?
It's been a wonderful day.
What you been into today?
Just digging around. We had a bunch of snow, but it's all turning to rain and slush. So I shoveled everything, but I don't know if that did any good or not.
Nice. Want to welcome the chat and the live audience and viewers and friends and all that good stuff. As usual, we'll be checking the chat, and hopefully you guys will add. You might not add more than Masterpiece, but you'll probably add more than I will to tonight. So we appreciate you guys for being here. Masterpiece, I got to say, first of all, you got your pipe today?
Oh, yes.
No,
right here.
no, you're fine. Oh, he's going to get it. Okay. All right. We'll be looking. Yeah, we'll be definitely looking for that. So I know you've done a little bit of traveling recently, haven't you, Masterpiece?
I have. I've been down in Arizona.
Okay. Well, I was doing a little stalking on your page. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, that was the other night. I wanted to get a picture. We have like this gigantic M up overlooking Montpelier, Idaho. It's all lit up and everything. And I brought out a big telephoto lens, and I got a shot. I wanted to get a shot of it. It's from about 5 miles away. I didn't get the shot that I wanted, but while I was there, I was taking some other pictures of the stars, and right in this field off to the right, this bright light appeared, and lasted about 30 seconds or so. It just kind of slowly faded into view. So it kind of started a little bit dim and then kind of got bright. Then it held there for about 30 seconds, and then it disappeared. It just kind of faded away. It didn't move around at all. It just kind of stays in place. There's a house behind me, but there was no light coming from there. There's nothing around anywhere where a light could come from. What I did research and find out looking on the map, the same time I saw this light, there was a train coming into town. And I looked on the map, and the only place where the train tracks line up with exactly this spot, it was 7.5 miles away.
Oh, wow. So what lens are you on right here?
This is a 14 millimeter lens here.
Okay.
So I went back the next night to see if I could wait there long enough to see if a train would come again and the light would show up again. And while I was doing that, I had my camera sit there taking pictures of the stars like this.
Did you see a pillar of light? Colt wants to know.
It wasn't a pillar. It was just a field of light.
A field of light. All right. I agree with Shannon. That's a gorgeous photo. I'm less, I guess, interested in the light. The light is a cool story, but just the stars, this is just captivating. I mean, it's an awesome shot.
Oh, thank you.
What's like the time, how much time passed for this shot? Do you know?
So I usually sit out there for about 45 minutes for a good Star Trails photo.
Okay.
So it was about 40-45 for this one. So I'll set up my camera and I'll do like 20-second exposures, and it'll just take pictures over and over again. And I've taken a number of them that are really fun. I did some with
what happened to you?
Aurora Borealis. Did I disappear?
Well, no, it was on my side. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I've done some with the Aurora Borealis. I've done some with a fisheye lens, and I've been doing some really fun Star Trail photos lately. So
cool.
This is just my latest one. I just figured I'll just have my camera sitting there and taking these shots while I'm waiting for this light to appear. And it didn't happen again while I was there.
Okay. Well, if that ends up like the backdrop of my podcast or something, you're not going to sue me, are you?
Oh, no.
Fantastic. So, wanted to kind of let me see here. Okay, so I named this "Believe It or Not." I used to love. Did you ever read this little Ripley's "Believe It or Not" book? Or there's even some like places that you can go and pay $20 and go through and see all this cool stuff. Are you into that kind of thing?
I have a few of those books. They used to have a TV show in the 80s that I used to watch. Ripley's
Okay.
Believe It or Not. It was like an old guy. He was a well-known actor, and I'm trying to remember who it was that did that. And I'm spacing on who the host for the show was, but they had Ripley's Believe It or Not TV show, and they've got a couple of museums that I've seen.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there used to be a book there on the little coffee table, and I'd thumb through, and I like that kind of thing. But what actually got me started on this line of thinking, now I know you and I, Ron, have done a few similar episodes, one specifically where we talked about Mormon myths. Yeah. And I was kind of in a little bit different headspace this time. The Mormon myths was more kind of like, the elevator shafts and, in the Salt Lake Temple and just kind of fun stuff like that. But kind of what I was thinking about with this is I had a couple things sent to me earlier today from people that was just like, oh, hey, did you see this or did you see that? And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I'll get into that in a second. But I realized that, for the most part, I just believe people. And what I mean by that is when I was bishop, I recall like maybe there's a marriage counseling situation, where husband and wife are fighting or whatever. And I would talk to one and I would be like totally bought in and on their side. And yeah, I totally see that. And then all of a sudden the other one comes in and I'm like totally, on the other side. And, I sort of had to learn to balance it out. But I just realized that when someone's telling me something and I'm listening to their testimony, or their experience, I don't usually question it. That's the way I had been and maybe still am to an extent. So, I was just thinking for the most part, I believe people. And so I wanted to go through, we're going to get into some Mormon history stuff and we can just, in the chat, we can just talk about it. Like, do we believe this or do we not? And I don't, especially on some of there's a couple that are just current things, and I don't want to disparage them. I don't want to doubt necessarily them if it's, that's what they say they believe, and that's fine. So anyways, that was kind of what got me started on this. But before we get into that, I thought we could play a quick round of two truths and a lie. Ron, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
You might have thought I was joking when I mentioned that to you. So, okay, two truths and a lie. I actually prepared my slides because I'm a well planned out individual. I don't do anything off the cuff, if you believe that. All right, so two truths and a lie. You've got to decide, Ron, which one is which here. You ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, so I have pet snakes, a boa constrictor, a green tea python, and a corn snake. I love my slithery friends, and I finally got my wife to love them also. That's one. I once filmed a wedding in a hot air balloon. There were 4 people present: the pilot, the bride, the groom, and me. The pilot officiated. Nice. And one more. I memorized and performed the famous Abbott and Costello routine, Who's On First. All right, Ron, you got the snakes, you got the hot air balloon, and you got Who's On First. Two truths and a lie. What do you think?
I think the number one was a partial truth, but the lie was you never got your wife to love them.
Okay, so you think that's... Well, no, you can't give me partial. You have to say one of them was a lie. One of them was a lie.
One was the lie.
Okay, you think one was the lie and the other 2 are true?
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. I hate snakes.
Oh,
I hate snakes. I hate snakes. You're not going to catch me with pet snakes. How about, I don't know about the chat there, but yeah, I'm not a snake guy. But yeah, I filmed a wedding in a hot air balloon. That was fun. And I even had a clip pulled up. I'm not going to play it. Oh, heck, I'll play it. I'll play just a couple seconds. This was me and one of my friends doing Who's On First. I'll play a couple seconds of it here.
Yes.
You don't know the guy's name?
I'm telling you the name.
All right, so tell me, who's on first?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell
Who?
me. The guy playing first.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who is on first?
What are you asking me for? I'm asking you.
I'm not asking you. I'm telling
No,
you.
you're not telling me nothing. I'm asking you who's on first.
Well, that's it.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell me.
That's his name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's the man.
That's plenty of that.
Nice.
Okay, so do you have any truths or lies for me, Ron, or
Yeah.
can you shoot from the hip?
I didn't do slides, but I've got
No
got
worries.
stories. I got
Okay.
my stories. So
Let's hear it.
in high school, I ate this lunch. I had a class right after lunch every day, and I often had gas because the school lunches were just atrocious. But this one day, I had the worst gas you can possibly imagine. It was just flooding the whole classroom. Everyone was complaining. I got sent to the principal's office for farting in class, and the principal told me that I had to learn how to control my gas problems. I have to learn how to hold it in, otherwise I'll have to go to see a doctor and get that fixed.
Okay.
Story one. Story
All right.
two. I'm on my mission. We are manning. We're kind of doing not really security, but we're just kind of watching and helping out at this a marathon downtown Anchorage. It's winter, and it's kind of a fun, happy-go-lucky race. It's not a very competitive one. People are dressed up in costumes and things and running. It's like March or February, and people are all dressed up in weird clothes in the snow. And we were kind of horsing around, having a fun time. I jump on my companion's back, knock him off balance, and we go forward into the street and knock over a couple of runners. And a cop sees us interfering with the race and arrests me because he sees me doing it.
All right. That one had a lot of details. I'm going with the truth, but go ahead. You got one more.
The last one is I'm still on my mission. We're teaching a discussion, or not, we're tracting, and we knock on a door, and this lady lets us in, and we go in and we talk to her, and she just, we like wake her up, but she's let her in. She lets us in, and we start talking to us. And we can barely get a word in edgewise. And every time we try to bring up the Book of Mormon, or she's ever heard about the Mormons, she gets all antagonistic and like, oh, you don't want to worry about them. You don't talk to those Mormons, that they're evil, or blah, blah, blah. And so we're in there for like 20 minutes before we finally get up and leave and kind of shake our dust our feet or something as we leave. But
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to go with, I think number one, I think it probably has some truth to it, and I think he was trying to throw me off. So, and number two was so detailed, so that leaves number three, the lie, and one and two, the truth. Final answer.
final answer. Okay,
Yeah.
let me show you. Let's see.
Oh, he's got a slide.
Okay, bring up that other page.
Okay, this one.
Yeah. There's me in the back of the cop car. That one is the lie. We were just
Okay.
they let me in and take the picture in the back of the car that I could send to my parents.
Okay. That was number
That was the second one.
okay, yeah. Oh, that was a lie. I got
That was the
it.
lie.
All right. Well, so did you get your condition fixed in number one?
No, I just tried not to get in trouble again like that.
All right. All right. So let me get into just a couple things. The first one I won't play a slide on yet, out of respect. But I sent you a screenshot, Masterpiece, of someone I have been talking to, and I'm trying to bring her on the show so she can get her message out. But she tells me that Joseph Smith came back in 2014. And she posts about it every day. She's very sincere. I've recently become Facebook friends with her, and I've never heard this. And so I'll be honest that when I was in the church, I was a Joseph Smith fanatic. And so don't get me wrong, I'm not a believer, but with all due respect, I haven't heard the details. So I wanted to bring her on to show, So that was one story that I was just like, she believes it. And I don't know if anyone in the chat knows about this. I don't know if it's a certain group or break off. I really don't know the details, but
you don't know if he's like reincarnated or resurrected or reborn?
She says that he has returned a second time to prepare for the restoration. So
All right.
not like a reincarnated thing, I don't think. But again, I've invited her on many times. So that was one. And I just, that's her story, and I thought it was interesting. Okay. The other one, I'm going to play just a minute or two of this. And this lady, first of all, I love old people. Their stories are so good. So this, I guess this is her name, and this is there's a YouTube video that you can find, and it's just simply, let me pull it up here. It's Nephite Mormon testimony. This lady believes that she was administered to by one of the three Nephites, and she's got it on YouTube. I can only assume that she wants the world to know about it. So let me just play a minute or so of this. About to say Ron, masterpiece, so you can kind of see what's going on here.
This is the part that's hard to tell. I was laying in bed sound asleep, and my eyes popped open, and my door opened, the door to the hall, and there was a light in the hallway. And when you say something, you don't know what else to say, and you just say the first thing that pops into your mind. And I said, Brother Bailey, is that you? Because I love old Brother Frank Bailey. He was a dear pastor and a dear man. And I knew it wasn't Brother Bailey, but like I say, you say foolish things when you don't know what you want to say. Well, when the door opened, in came, I'm shaking, in came this large man. He just came under the door, and he had a robe on. And I couldn't see the features of his face. But he came over, and Marion was sound asleep. It was like somebody had knocked her out with drugs. She was so sound asleep you could hardly hear her breathe. And he came over to the bed. He took his hand, and I said, Brother Bailey, is that you? And he said, no. He said, I have come to administer unto thee. And he laid his hand, his right hand, on my arm. And his hand was large and gentle. It went almost from my wrist, almost to my elbow. It was just a big hand, and gentle, like a mother holding a baby. And when he said he had come to administer unto me, I knew right then it was one of the three Nephites.
Okay. Hopefully you guys could hear that okay, but
You can hear it fine.
I listened to the whole thing. It was a 15-minute thing, and she's in the hospital, and this person comes in and gives her a blessing. Well, she goes on to say that she went next door to tell the person in another room about it, and she said that she had the same thing happen. A very similar, situation. So, again, this lady actually, if you listen to the whole thing, she seems like a sharp lady. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't seem like she's lost her mind. She's recalling other details and things. So I don't know, Masterpiece. What do you make when you hear? Okay, where I'm going with this is I'm thinking of church history, right? And this lady, 100 years from now, they're going to be able to pull this story up and do whatever, do the same things that we constantly do about all of these old stories from the good old days of 1800 and whatever. So I don't know. What do you make of stories like this? To me, she seems sincere. She seems honest. Now, did it happen? You know, I don't know. Do you believe it or not?
I believe she thinks it happened.
See, that's the thing. And I think I'm too black and white of a person still to really grasp what people mean when they say that. Like, what do you mean she believes? Like, did it happen or didn't it? You know?
I think if it's happening at night, these kinds of things always are happening in a kind of a dream-like state. Martin Harris, he's asleep one time and he has experience where he sees like this demon dog on his chest, and it's kind of like preventing him from moving or something like that. And that can be explained by like some kind of sleep paralysis type of experience, because there was other people in the room, they didn't see it. Martin Harris sees it, he believes it, he thinks it's real. But we can look back and say, well, this looks like some kind of sleep paralysis incident, and wasn't really a demon dog on him. So our minds can do funny things to us, and we think we see things, and they may not see them. So they're fabulous hallucinatory tools.
So you reminded me, okay, I know whenever someone says, let me tell you about my dream, like everyone in the room closes down because nobody's dreams are important to anyone but let me tell you about a dream I had the other day. My wife wakes me up, she hits me and she says, are you okay? You know, she's like, you're freaking out. I'm like, oh, I said, this is what I said. I said, thanks for waking me up. I was working with the trumpet player in my band, and I had just taken the trumpet and I was trying to show him what I wanted him to do. Well, but I realized that I did not know how to play the trumpet. And she woke me up right in time before I had to try to. And I put that on Facebook, and people's like, this guy's crazy. But yeah, so, you know, I don't know. Could she have been dreaming and she thought she was, you know, and could she have been in that space of in and out? I don't know. And that's why it's so interesting when we see some of these church history things. So let me just tell you one more kind of a current thing, and we'll get into some more history stuff. So Ruth sent me this today. Okay, let me see here. Present. All right, so this was on Mormonism After Dark on, when was that? December 6th. And this lady called in. She called in because she believes that she is reincarnated Joseph Smith. Did you hear this? Or
I have not heard this one, no.
All right, I'm going to play just a minute or so of it, and then we'll move on. But so this is a call-in show to Mormonism After Dark, and I'm going to start right here.
Prophet Joseph Smith. I was the prophet Joseph Smith, and that was the first restoration.
You were the prophet Joseph Smith.
And at the second restoration, I was the Christian apologist C.S. Lewis of Great Britain.
Man, now how would I know if what you're saying is true? Do you have a litmus test that I could follow so that I could know that your claims
I'm on
are?
Facebook.
Yeah, please.
That's what I'm telling you. It's a testimony. I have to. If I tell you the story, I even wrote a book. The book is on Amazon. It's called The Reincarnation of C.S. Lewis.
The Reincarnation.
I only wrote about it because the Reincarnation of C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
So I could play more of that, but anyways, she's just saying how she's C.S. Lewis. She's also Joseph Smith reincarnated. And so Bill and RFM, they're like, all right, Bill's like, okay, RFM, let's think about something that only she would know, that we know, but she would only know it if she was really Joseph Smith. So they banter around like that for a little while, but you know, this lady believes it. And who am I to say that she's not both of those people? She's got a book, you know. she's got a book, The Reincarnation of C.S. Lewis, and she's also Joseph Smith. So
Interesting.
So anyways, that was kind of where I was thinking this morning. I'm like, what are we to make of these stories that people just believe? And someone in the chat earlier said something about mushrooms or something. And I'll be honest, I don't know anything about that type of thing other than a lot of people sincerely believe that played a role. Or if it wasn't with church history stories, if it wasn't magic, mushrooms, it may have been fasting for, long periods of time. And then I think there was even like some wine, wine or something that.
So the Kirtland Temple, they had everybody fasting, and then they gave them lots of wine. They like brought in a keg or something of like a barrel of wine for people to keep taking as they're celebrating the dedication of the temple. So whether that wine, either the fasting with the wine, or there was something laced in the wine to make people see things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you tend to side. I'm trying to get in your brain, Masterpiece, but you tend to side on many of these stories that it's not that they're telling the truth or lying, but kind of somewhere in the middle that they think this happened. Is that kind of your position on when you hear most of these things, or not necessarily?
Sometimes I think they're lying.
Okay. Well, my wife says it sounds like a really fun party. So I think she's talking about the spiked wine thing.
Yeah.
But she doesn't drink wine. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you take me through? I have some church history stuff to talk about too. But why don't you take us through a couple of the things? Most of the stuff I was going to mention is widely known, and I know we do have some newer people to, the Exmo space, and quite frankly, you don't learn a lot of this stuff when you're active and faithful. So I don't necessarily want to shy away from the more well-known stuff, but I am very interested in some of the more kind of obscure things that I know that you know about. So why don't you lead us on a couple little things here, Masterpiece?
All right. Let's bring up mine here.
So Mike says there is an association between extended fasting and perceived spiritual experiences. I can see that.
All right. Can you see my slide deck here?
Yep. And let me share one more thing before we go there.
Okay.
Some guy out there, I had a buddy that got me so convinced of all of her stuff back in 2014. I think that was, I'm not sure which one he's referring to, but anyways, that must be this Julie Rowe stuff. I don't know who that is, but anyways, let me share your stuff here. Okay. Unbelievable stories from church history. Well, hold on. You use the word unbelievable. That's up for us to decide, Masterpiece.
Oh, sorry about that.
All right. What do we have here? We've got some little cartoons.
This is a vision or something. It wasn't necessarily a vision. There were supposedly a bunch of people that had seen this. In the stars going across the sky, they see an army marching across.
Who is they?
We have Hebert Kimball and Brigham Young. They don't know each other yet. They are miles apart from each other when they both see this vision.
And they both wrote about it separately?
They both wrote about it or told about it after the fact.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly when they told the story. They see this, and then as they discover later on, they realize they're seeing this on September 22nd, 1827. So they're seeing this vision the same night that Joseph Smith is getting the gold plates.
Mm.
So here is their account. Let's see. So September 22nd, 1827, Brigham Young and Heber Kimball, living miles apart, saw this scene before they had even met. So Heber says in his account, I had retired to bed when John P. Green, who was living within 100 steps of my house, came and woke me up, calling upon me to come out and behold the scenery in the heavens. I woke up and called my sister and wife and sister, Fanny Young, sister to Brigham Young. Sounds like they did know each other. At least they were somehow related. Who was living with us, and we went outdoors. It was one of the most beautiful starlight nights, so clear that we could see to pick up a pin. We looked to the eastern horizon, and behold, a white smoke arise towards the heavens. As it ascended, it formed itself into a belt and made a noise like the sound of a mighty wind, and continued southwest, forming a regular bow dipping in the western horizon. After the bow had formed, it began to widen out and grow clear and transparent of a bluish cast. It grew wide enough to contain 12 men abreast. In this bow, an army moved, commencing from the east and marching to the west. They continued marching until they reached the western horizon. They moved in platoons and walked so close that the rear ranks trod in the steps of their file leaders until the whole bow was literally crowded with soldiers. We could distinctly see the muskets, bayonets, and knapsacks of the men, who wore caps and feathers like those used by the American soldiers in the last war with Britain, and also saw their officers with their swords and equipage, and clashing and jingling of their implements of war was heard, and we could discover from the forms and features of the men. The most profound order existed throughout the entire army. When the foremost man stepped, every man stepped at the same time. I could hear the steps. When the front rank reached the western horizon, a battle ensued, and we could distinctly hear the report of arms and the rush. No man could judge of my feelings when I beheld that army of men, as plainly as I ever saw armies of men in the flesh. It seemed as though every hair of my head was alive. The scenery we gazed upon for hours, until it began to disappear. After I became acquainted with Mormonism, I learned that this took place the same evening that Joseph Smith received the records of the Book of Mormon from the angel Moroni, who held those records in his possession. And then John Young Sr. and John P. Green's wife, Rhoda, were also witnesses. My wife, being frightened with what she saw, she said, Father Young, what does this all mean? Why, it's one of the signs of the coming of the Son of Man, he replied, in a lively, pleased manner. The next night, similar scenery was beheld in the west by the neighbors, representing armies of men who were engaged in battle.
All right. Well, so that's one account, huh?
Yeah. I'm not sure what Brigham said about this. I was thinking that last paragraph might have been Brigham's, but I think that was just, it was still John P. Green's wife. So I'll have to find out what Brigham saw, because he was apparently had seen this too.
Okay.
When they lived apart.
My wife just brought me a drink.
Oh, you left it out.
So, that's interesting. Did it happen? I don't know. What do you think, Ron? Did that happen?
No.
No. Do you think it was like a revisionist history kind of thing to support the Joseph story?
I think so.
I mean, they didn't have a lot to do back then, but kind of look into the sky. And I mean, if you look at something long enough, you can start to see stuff, start to see faces in the trees or whatever. So that's interesting. I don't know that I had ever heard that. I don't know if anyone in the chat has ever heard about the armies marching through the sky all in unison. Sounds like synchronized marching or something, but
the story was I found this again. I was looking a couple of places for this. This was in published Ensign 2007, and also LDS Living within the last couple of years. So it comes up every once in a while. It's been published in Mormon sources.
Yeah. So when I was a believer, I would have bought it wholesale, hook, line, and sinker. I was primed to believe stuff like this. Like if you believe Peter, James, and John, and John the Baptist and the first vision. I mean, why not? Where are you supposed to draw the line? So I would have believed it entirely.
It's coming from the same prophets and apostles. So it's clearly something that could have happened if you're in that Mormon believing mindset. If the other stuff is possible, then this definitely is possible.
Yep, all great comments here. I agree with everyone. I have the tendency to believe people, used to, but I don't really believe in this kind of thing anymore, unfortunately. You want to go to another one?
I've got another fun story, very similar to that one, actually.
I love these little this little artwork here.
I've been having fun today making these.
All right, so I see burning something in the sky. Oh, now all of a sudden I think I might know what that is.
Yeah, so this is Parley Pratt, and he's seeing. I think this is in like 1830 or something. I'll have to go to the next page and see what it is. But it was he sees these stars forming, like he's looking at the night sky and he sees these burning lights merge together and form these symbols in the sky. And so I'll jump into his account here, but this is what I imagine it could have looked like. I had been on a visit to a singular people called the Shakers at New Lebanon, about 7 miles from my aunt Van Kotz, and was returning that distance on foot a beautiful evening of September 1830. Was it September 22nd? It's a good question. I don't know. He just says September 1830. The sky was without a cloud. The stars shone out beautifully, and all nature seemed reposing in quiet as I pursued my solitary way, wrapped in deep meditations on the predictions of the holy prophets, the signs of the times, the approaching advent of the Messiah to reign on the earth, and the important revelations in the Book of Mormon. My heart filled with gratitude to God that he had opened the eyes of my understanding to receive the truth, and with sorrow for the blindness of those who had rejected the same, when my attention was aroused by a sudden appearance of a brilliant light which shone around me above the brightness of the sun. I cast my eyes upwards to inquire from whence the light came, and when I perceived a long chain of light extended in the heavens, a very bright and a deep fiery red, it stood stationary in a horizontal position, at length bending in the center, and the two ends approached each other with rapid movement, so as to form an exact square. In this position it remained stationary for some time, perhaps a minute, and then again the ends approached each other with the same rapidity, and then again it ceased to move, remaining stationary for perhaps a minute in the form of a compass. And then it commenced a third movement in the same manner, closing like the closing of a compass, the whole forming a straight line like a chain doubled. It again remained stationary for a minute and then faded away. I fell upon my knees in the street and thanked the Lord for so marvelous a sign of the coming of the Son of Man. Some persons may smile at this and say that these exact movements were by chance, but for my part, I could as soon believe that the letters of the alphabet would be formed by chance and be placed so as to spell my name, as to believe that these signs, known only to the wise, could be formed and shown forth by chance.
So he's seeing Masonic symbols in the sky. Oh boy.
This is one I hadn't heard before. I found this one.
Heard this.
I found this one when I was looking for the story on the army marching across the sky, and LDS Living had both that one and this one. So, yeah.
LDS Living is an interesting site. I've found a bunch of stuff that many faithful Mormons want to challenge me on. I found the not the multiple versions of the first vision. Most people think that's what I'm talking about. Multiple people and their first visions, like Norris Stearns and a bunch of people like that. They mention in there that there's 20, at least 20, I think it was 20 or more, people that claim to saw Jesus and Heavenly Father back in the 1800s, early 1800s, before Joseph Smith. I mean, they put it right out there. And then the other one was Joseph's father's dream. They're like, hey, did you know that Joseph Sr. had the you know, the dream of the tree of life before, you know? So it's like, I can't read those stories for 20 seconds now without thinking, did I believe this stuff? Of course, I didn't know that specifically, but people do. People I talk to, they know it, and they're like, oh, isn't it great? Isn't it great that Joseph Sr. saw the same exact thing, you know? So
It's not
anyways,
sus at all.
no, not sus at all. Someone in the chat had said, let me find that. Oh gosh, where was it? Anyways, they was saying how all this stuff kind of started to, visions of glory. Yeah, I also got sucked into visions of glory, felt the spirit, it was all fake. So we used to have, where I used to live was on my wife's family's land, like 80 acres. And all of her sisters live on the property somewhere. Well, we used to have a family home evening once, you know, a week, where we'd all get together and we would take not Visions of Glory, but the other book. I think I told you about it, Masterpiece, As a Thief in the Night.
Yeah.
And we would just sit there and read it like we were like the early stages of prepper kind of stuff, and we'd be like, oh, you know, that book talks a lot about all the cities turning on themselves, and you're only going to be safe outside the city, and all of these crazy ass, you know, prophecies of the future, you know. So, yep, I hear you there. All right, well, Ron, let me just slide in here. This is something that's very well known, I think, but maybe not to some people. Especially, I know there's been even a few people in the chat who are relatively new to being kind of on this side of things. But anyways, this whole story of Mahonri Moriancumer, I think is so funny because, you know, I wrote about this and I was joking that I was known as Derek's brother, you know, because I had an older brother named Derek. So, oh, aren't you Derek's brother? You know, he was a year and a half older than me. So I kind of like feel for the brother of Jared because he had the same thing. It's like, oh, yeah, aren't you Jared's brother? You know, and so interestingly, the brother of Jared actually has a name, and we know it, even though he was mentioned 41 times in the Book of Mormon. So how do we know his name? Well, Joseph was a-walking down the road one day in Kirtland, Ohio, when Brother Cahoon asked him to bless and name his baby. Joseph did, and during the blessing, he received a revelation and named the kid Mahonri Moriancumer. I'm sure the family was like, what just happened? What did you just name my kid? They probably started to second guess having him do that. But then Joseph told them that the name that he had just named their kid was super duper special and was the same name as the brother of Jared from the Book of Mormon. So I did know this story as a TBM, as a, you know, true believer. I thought it was amazing, you know, that Joseph could receive that revelation right there. Interestingly, yeah, they were expecting Adam or Scott, and they got Mahonri Moriancumer. But interestingly, legit, Joseph Smith blessed my third great grandma. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, interestingly, we are told that basically that name was just kind of too complex, right? Masterpiece is why Joseph said that it wasn't in the scriptures. It was too hard to translate or something like that.
Something like that. I don't know.
So interestingly, here's a bunch of names that were not too hard to include. You know, Abnegidda, Coriantumr, Gidgidona, Gimagana, Jacobugath, Mena Sa'amana, you know, it's like Pakumini, Ramiumtum, all of these names made it. But Mahanrai, you know, maybe he could have just been Mahanrai, but it's so silly that it was, maybe it was just too holy to repeat. You know, I told Masterpiece, I said, we're going to try to do this episode and not make fun, but some of these are just too hard not to. It's like that just doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. So I like that story of Mahanrai Moriankama. You got any thoughts on that one, Masterpiece?
Joseph was great at off the cuff making things up. Sounds like something that was just one of those things. It's like looking in your seer stone and telling some girl to impress her that you've looked in there and seen men on the moon or so whatever.
Yeah. You know, I'll admit it. A good storyteller, you know, he'll use the tools that are available. One tool is exaggeration. Okay. Everybody knows, you know, you tell a story and, you know, you caught a fish that was 10 inches, but it's going to be 15 inches, right?
Right.
Right. Sometimes we like to make things a little bit bigger than they really are, right?
Sometimes you got to make that plane do a nosedive with flame coming out of the engines. And
yeah. And you know what? I give just a little teeny bit of leeway or whatever, you know, when you're telling stories, but at conference or, you know, in the calling from the pulpit, you know, it's just, oh gosh, come on.
yeah.
All right. So that was Mahanrai, but you're right. What I was going with that is, I think Joseph realized that if he would give just details, you know, just kind of like that snake story I told you. Again, I named off a bunch of snakes, and I told you I was trying to convince my wife to, you know, it's like total just, but when you add details and, oh, this is the special name, you know, it seems more believable. And any good storyteller would learn that and learn, you know, to keep the audience interested or whatever. So, that was my take on Mahanrai. You have something to share, Ron?
I've got another story here. This one was, let's see, where did I lose? Oh, there we go. So I think this was originally in the Journal of Discourses. I found it in the book Masterful Discourses of Orson Pratt. But this is Orson Pratt telling his congregation in one of his sermons that the three Nephites are converting all the appearing to Native Americans, telling them to come to Salt Lake. So he says, the Lord said when their record should come forth in the latter days, that he would send his messengers to them. And among these messengers, he mentioned 3 persons who lived some 1800 years ago, 3 of the 12 who were chosen on this land. We hear that these messengers have come, not in one instance, but in many. Already we have heard some 1,400 Indians, and I do not know, but there may be more, who have been baptized. And ask them why they have come so many hundreds of miles to find the elders of the church, and they will reply, such a person came to us. He spoke in our language, instructed us, and told us what to do, and we have come in order to comply with his requirements.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's interesting. I've never heard that one, but we know the 3 Nephites. They're busy doing their thing.
And apparently they're out baptizing people, and they're at least preaching to the Native Americans and telling them to come get baptized.
In their own tongue, right?
Sure, yep.
Okay. All right, well, that one's interesting. I guess this is, do we believe it or not? I don't know about that. I don't think I believe any of this 3 Nephite stuff until further.
I haven't heard any stories of mass Indians getting baptized like this in church history. I think he's just making up these stories like when you're far enough apart and like, oh yeah, these Indians like 1,000 miles away in another state, they all got baptized, and oh yeah, the 3 Nephites came to them, and
that's true. Yeah, you could just drop a story off the cuff, figuring that it would never really go any farther than than who you're telling. But now with the internet, everybody gets to hear it.
Yep.
Okay, so I had another one here. This was I don't know where I found this picture, but do you know what this is supposed to be depicting? I don't know if the picture specifically was that, but it is a representation of a story that I found, or that I like to talk about here.
It looks like a cave in Hill Cumorah.
Okay, yeah. So this is from the Journal of Discourses, and this is talking about Joseph. Let's see. Well, let's just read it. All right. Oliver Cowdery went with the prophet Joseph when he deposited these plates. First of all, we're not told that in regular. Aren't we just told that Moroni took the plates?
Yeah.
I mean, so already, we've got a contradiction. But anyway, Joseph did not translate all of the plates. There was a portion of them sealed, which you can learn from the Book of Doctrine and Covenants. When Joseph got the plates, the angel instructed him to carry them back to the Hill Cumorah, which he did. Oliver says that when Joseph and Oliver went there, the hill opened, and they walked into a cave in which there was a large and spacious room. He says he did not think at the time whether they had the light or the sun of artificial light, but that it was just as light as day. Everything is always, even your story, Ron, was was as light as noonday, right?
Right.
All right, continuing. They laid the plates on the table. It was a large table that stood in the room. Under this table, there was a pile of plates, as much as 2 feet high. And there were altogether in this room more plates than probably many wagon loads. How many wagon loads? Many. All right, continuing. They were piled up in the corners and along the walls. The first time they went there, the sword of Laban hung on the wall. But when they went again, it had been taken down and laid upon the table across the gold plates. It was unsheathed, and on it was written these words: "This sword will never be sheathed again until the kingdoms of this world become the kingdom of our God and his Christ." There's one more part here. I tell you this as coming not only from Oliver Cowdery, but others who were familiar with it and who understood it just as well as we understood coming to this meeting. Don Carlos Smith was a young man of as much veracity as any young man we had, and he, something's covering my thing here, and he was a witness to these things. Samuel Smith saw these things. Hiram was a good man. That's not the part I was trying to get to. Let me see, do I have it? Oh, no. So it went on, I guess I cut it off. It went on to say that when Joseph, I'm mixing stories. Sorry, I was mixing the one about bringing Alvin back, who had died. That's something later. So, okay, so that's the story. That
whole discourse that Brigham gave there is fascinating. You need to read the whole thing because it's got some great shit in there.
Great shit. So they're walking to take the plates back. The ground just morphs. Like these are, a person appearing. That's one thing. Like that's already, kind of breaks the laws of physics. but the ground opening and letting you in, and you see plates like, oh, how has this religion survived this long with this kind of stories? And I know that we don't talk about most of them, but we talk about some of them.
Yep.
That's wild. All right. You got something, Masterpiece?
So a couple other stories that he gives in that sermon.
Okay.
He talks about he's trying to tell the people not to spend all their time trying to dig in the hills for gold or treasure or whatever, because God has protected all the treasure, and he'll only let people access it when they're ready for it. So he says he could go out there. He knows where all sorts of treasure is, and if he wanted to, he could go out there and get it, but it's not the right time for it. And he says how the treasure can move around back and forth through the hills, so people can't access it. Even if it's like he's got Porter Rockwell there, worried about somebody's going to strike his load because they're digging right close to where his find is, and Brigham's like, don't worry about it. They can strike right next to it and they'll still never find it because God will take care of it or whatever. And then he talks about another story that Porter had told him. So Porter Rockwell was one of Joseph Smith's childhood friends, closest. He's one of the first people baptized in the church. So he was there on April 6th, 1830. I don't know if he got baptized that day, but he was there, and he got baptized right there or right very close to it. But he was also one of his treasure digging friends, and he was with Joseph Smith Sr. And the story that other people have told is they see this chest in the hillside, and it starts to move, but Joseph Smith Sr. hits it with a pickaxe. A piece of the lid pops off, and the treasure chest flies away into the hillside. And then they give that chest piece, the little chunk of the wood, to Lucy Mack Smith as a memento. As Brigham tells the story in that discourse, he says that they were able to capture the treasure. They cashed it in and got all sorts of money from it, took it to the bank, and gave a piece to a woman who still has it today. He didn't give names, but if you know the story, you can kind of piece who some of the other things are together. But
shouldn't we be able to find in the bank's transactions record of that?
Yeah, that would be huge if someone was treasure digging and actually found a chest full of treasure. That would have been everywhere.
Oh, man.
But he's like, Porter told it to me, and he'll always tell the truth. He'll never lie. So I trust this, but it's total BS. So that discourse is a lot of fun, but you can totally see the treasure digging lore that still exists in the church even after Joseph Smith dies. Brigham still believes all this. The treasures can be sliding around and moving through the hills and whatever. So,
wow. Okay. We have slippery treasures then, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Did you have anything else on your slides there?
I have one more here.
Okay.
So this is a story in the newspaper about Martin Harris. And the part of the story that someone gave says that no matter where he went, he saw visions and supernatural appearances all around him. He told a gentleman in Palmyra after one of his excursions to Pennsylvania, while the translation of the Book of Mormon was going on, that on the way he met the Lord Jesus Christ, who walked along by the side of him in the shape of a deer for 2 or 3 miles, talking with him as familiarly as one man talks with another. With the knowledge of the facts that have now been stated, the existence of the Book of Mormon can well be accounted for, and also the success of this imposture. So I love the story and the imagery that it just evicts of dear Jesus.
Why a deer?
I don't know. Martin Harris also had told a story where he's sees on top of a barn. He sees an angel walking across the top of a barn for a little bit. So he just has kind of a rather fantastical view of seeing things, and he'll see all sorts of weird stuff and attribute it to God and all sorts of mystical stories. So he's not the most reliable witness of the gold plates, is all I can say.
Why do you say that? I was just pulling up this picture because I had it in my slides too. But you know, he looks about like I do after a rough day's work. You know, he looks like he's wore out. So why do you say he wasn't the most trustworthy on that?
He was a very gullible person. He'll believe anything, and if you give it some magical attribution, he'll fall for it all. So he was also a believer in the Vori plates and James Strangs, who's a follower of that guy for a while, and he went from church to church to church, and he believed in them all.
How come our church doesn't tell that part? We've all heard the fact that the three witnesses, you know, never back. What do they say? Never.
They've always believed their testimony. They never denied their testimony.
Yeah, even if they left the church, they never denied their testimony. There you go. But they forget to tell us this stuff. You know, that he believed in other plates and joined other churches. And yep, that's interesting. Was that all on Dear Jesus?
Yeah, that's all I have there. There's some more pictures you can find if you look up Dear Jesus, but there's some really fun ones.
So the next one, I mentioned this on Colch's show the other day, and I had Colby Reddish in the chat. So, do you know Colby?
Yeah.
Masterpiece. Okay. And I respect the guy, and he had put in the chat something like Nathan's totally right, or Nathan's on fire, or something like that. So I appreciated what he said, but basically what I was pointing out, and I've thought about this a fair amount. Did you see the Murder Among Mormons documentary?
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to that, and then I also listened to the interviews that John did with the guy that was friends with Hoffman. I can't remember his name right now.
I'm spacing idiot too. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys know who I'm talking about. But anyway, so I've been very interested in this whole thing. Well, I was just pointing out that I feel like when they're walking you through this whole Hoffman story, that there's just like one obvious point that maybe is so obvious that they don't need to point it out. But I feel like the times I've heard the story talked about, we don't actually connect the dots at the end of the story. And this is what I mean. So we all know that Hoffman forged documents, and the church bought them hook, line, and sinker. Many of them. Well, this particular one about the white salamander, you ask yourself, why would the church fall for that? Right? Like if I came up with some document about, any random thing, so I'm not, whatever, just a random thing, and took it to the church, they're going to be like, get out of here. Whatever. We don't. So the whole reason on why the church fell for it, I think we don't really connect those dots like we probably should. And so there are multiple stories in church history, and you'll know better than I will, Masterpiece, talking about Moroni in the form of either a frog or some sort of toad or something like that. And not just one story, but there are many. There's one that talks about him hiding under a shed. Have you seen that one, Masterpiece? Something about Moroni went under the shed. And they were talking about it on Mormonism Live the other day, and it's kind of like, oh, that sounds like a frog, right?
Is this Moroni, or is this like one of the? And it might have been. Yeah, I'm thinking of Moroni was going to come out and show a woman the plates. Is that what it is? Is that what the story?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure specifically about that. I just remember a reference to something about him going back under the shed. So we'll check on that. But at any rate, this particular story is about from Willard Chase, and it's in Mormonism Unveiled. And it says, in the month of June 1827, Joseph Smith Sr. related to me the following story. That some years ago, a spirit had appeared to Joseph, his son, in a vision and informed him that in a certain place there was a record of plates of gold and that he was the person that must obtain them. And this he must do in the following manner. Okay. On the 22nd of December, he must repair to the place where was deposited this manuscript, dressed in black clothes and riding a black horse with a switch tail, and demand the book in a certain name. And after obtaining it, he must go directly away and neither lay it down nor look behind him. Okay. They accordingly fitted out Joseph with a suit of black clothes and borrowed a black horse, hopefully with the switch tail. He repaired to the place of deposit and demanded the book, which was in a stone box, unsealed, and so near the top of the ground that he could see one end of it. And raising it up, he took out the book of gold, but fearing someone might discover where he got it, he laid it back down to place back on top of the stone as he found it. And turning around, to his surprise, there was no book in sight. He again opened the book and in it saw the book and attempted to take it out, but was hindered. Now, we read all that to get to this. He saw in the box something like a toad, which soon assumed the appearance of a man and struck him on the side of his head. Not being discouraged at trifles, he again stooped down and strove to take the book when the spirit struck him again and knocked him 3 or 4 rods and did hurt him. What is it? Prodigiously or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say that it told him that you had to bring your oldest brother back to get him, to come back in the same time each year. Well, we know that Alvin dies in between that time. So then they had another. So anyways, the point I'm getting at is Hoffman was a historian, and he knew some of this bullshit that we're now all finding out. But the church didn't know that he knew, and the church didn't think really anyone knew, but they knew. And that's kind of, they want to say, well, we're as honest as we know how to be. But this goes back, this goes back to the very beginning. And so anyways, the point is, and then this was the point I was making on Culture's show the other night, that when the church finds out that Hoffman has this white salamander story, they're sitting here elbowing each other saying, oh my gosh, there is that story in the vault. They're whispering to each other saying, I don't think he knows about this, but we know that this story is kind of true. And that's why, that's why he was able to dupe the church, right? I mean, yes. we all hear that he did, that he made the story and they bought it, but the why did they buy it? And the reason why they bought it is because they knew that these stories, and there's more than just this one, that refer to a toad, creature. And so that's why they were willing, apparently, I was looking it up earlier, apparently they had another member pay, I think, $40,000, and then he donated to the church. And if you don't think that member got that money from the church, then I guess pretty gullible. But anyway, that was just a whole thing that just connecting those dots of why he was able to dupe them. And that was because they knew information that they didn't think anyone else knew, and they didn't want anyone knowing. So they were trying to buy this up so it wouldn't get out. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, and you could ignore some of this from Willard Chase and say that it's just a contrary person spreading bad stories. But the first part of the story is almost identically described by Lucy Mack Smith in her biography of Joseph Smith, when she tells the story about him trying to go get the plates, and he sets it down to try to close the lid or something like that, and then the plates disappear, they teleport back into the box, and he tries to go back in, and he gets shocked and knocked back, and then the angel appears. So this is a very similar story to what she tells. So, and she probably fudged it up a little bit to make it look not so weird. So I think Willard Chase's story is probably closer to the original than what Lucy Mack shared.
Yeah. So I'm going to put the StreamYard link just in case anyone out there feels like they either have a personal story to share or something something that you want to come on for just a minute or two or a few minutes and share. But just going through a couple of these comments, let's see. Peter says, if TBMs believe what's in the Book of Mormon, then Hoffman's letter wouldn't take much effort. That's kind of the point. You know, we get primed to believe in the magical, mysterious things. And, you know, I hate to say it, but as you start to realize that you think you've been duped, then you apply that same logic to stories in the Bible and, you know, in different ways. And so, you know, unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. Yeah. So vocal, see, I don't know how you pronounce that, but what's a rod? How long is that? I don't know. How long is a rod? Ron, is it?
Google it. I don't know.
Let's see. Was this the apologetic that came out, or is Big Chris joking? Or he says it's not a literal salamander. A salamander is anything that materializes from fire. Is he being serious, or I'm not sure if I follow that, but.
When I was a kid, when this event was going on, my dad sat us all down and told us the story of this white salamander. Then he pulled out a dictionary and explained that but one definition of a salamander is something or other. It was kind of more figurative, and it wasn't like a literal reptile, but so he found some way to kind of explain it to us, and I had no idea what he was talking about. I was maybe 10, 12 years old, and I just kind of heard people talking about this white salamander story, but I don't know the significance of it.
Janine wants to know if you
The chandelier.
you see that hairy plant thing back there?
Yeah.
I had to move it over because I was like this, and it looked like I had freaking. I mean, now I have that a lot, you know, big cowlick back here, but I had to move it over to fix that situation. Yeah. So apparently a rod is 5.5 yards, so he got knocked back 50 to 66 feet.
That's one heck of a knock.
Heck yeah. All right. So I want to see if anyone will come on. You can come on audio only if you're laying there in your, in your undies. And if you want to, but while we wait, I don't know. We usually don't get anyone, and that's okay. Let me ask you, Ron, in all of your years, how many years were you faithful TBM?
45.
45 years. Did you ever, in your testimonies and stuff like that, did you ever say things like that you heard a voice, or you saw a vision, or, like that you had a miraculous event that happened to you or something like that?
I didn't hear a voice. I heard I felt a very strong prompting, that was like, do it. So I had been, I was getting up ready for school in the morning for college. I had a girlfriend at the time had her about 4 or 5 months. And then as I was showering, I just had this weird dialogue in my mind of how I would break up with her. And things were going along fine. I didn't know any problems or anything. But for some reason, this weird dialogue was going through my mind as I was showering. And as I got out of the shower, I just felt like this, do it. And I'm like, I stopped and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I think about it like, well, okay, this is a prompting. I'm supposed to break up with this girlfriend. So I break up with her, and a couple months later, I start dating my wife, and we get married a few months after that. So that was a story I would tell my own family, a family home evening, like, hey, this is a weird prompting that I had. You got to follow your promptings because God will take you someplace exciting that you don't know about. If you just follow the promptings, you'll be blessed.
Do you would you still tell that same story, or do you have a different take on it now?
I wouldn't say it was the spirit doing it, but I think my mind was protecting me, like letting me know that this relationship has kind of run its course. It's probably time to move on to someone else.
Okay. I don't remember ever claiming I heard a voice or anything like that. I had to speak a lot. There were a lot of times that someone wouldn't show up for church or something. I was like, well, it looks like I got to speak again. So I'd pull a rabbit out of a hat, but I don't recall ever claiming any other than a feeling, but never when I was asking for it. There were specific times before my mission and in the MTC and stuff like this that I prayed for this whole Moroni promise thing. But, I would definitely have claimed and still would claim that I've felt, elevated emotion, right? Or just caught up in a moment. So, I realize that we'll call it BS meter, but I don't know, maybe that's it goes off. Oh, we have someone waltzing into the studio. My BS meter goes off. Just the other day, there's a Baptist church right up the road, and every geographical area that I've been in has like one church that's kind of the place to go for like all the kids in school. It's like the popular place, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is that way for this particular Baptist church. All of the high school kids or whatever, the cool group, they'll all go there. So fine. Well, they had posted a video the other day, and they were talking about how the preacher was preaching, and he says, the Lord told me. You got to remember, I'm in East Tennessee. We preach the fire and damnation. The Lord told me that this area of the United States will save the country, and it will be because of you Christians that are, here, sitting here today. And this video was going viral in our community. Like everyone's, yeah, Pastor, what's his name? And I hear the Lord told me, just that little phrase. And when I hear that, my BS meter shoots through the roof because I want to talk like, stop. Like, don't continue. Let's talk about how the Lord told you. Was he in the shape of a deer? Was he, what do you mean by the Lord told me? And so if you asked enough questions and if they were honest, they would say, okay, well, I had a feeling, right?
Right.
And so everything in every religion comes down to a feeling. All right, we had a couple people waltz into the studio. We're going to check in with this one. Looks rather unsightly.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, masterpiece.
Let's bring in Coach, and we'll also we might as well bring in we'll bring in both of them for a sec. Hello, Mike. How you doing?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yep, we
Oh
can hear you.
yeah. Great to have you. We know you're sitting in your undies, Mike.
Yeah. I'm in my sofa here with my dogs. It's just dark and all. It's kind of hard to see. So,
Oh, no worries. No worries. I'm kidding.
If you prefer the vision of underwear, then that's great too.
You need one of these, Mike. Get a little light going.
Okay, so Mike and Coach, we've talked for over an hour. We've been talking about just stories, that either from church history or maybe a personal story that we maybe still believe or we once believed, or possibly stories that we know from friends or family or something. You guys have any thoughts when it comes to just things that are either hard to believe or we just don't believe, or what do y'all think?
You want to go first, Mike?
Yeah, I've got a quick one. I kind of equate it to like a rite of passage for, say a prisoner. They have to get a tattoo, or they have to show that they're part of a club and get kind of like earn their street cred or something. And last week I was watching Steve Pinecker, and he was interviewing Chief Mitiga, and he was about to announce he was getting baptized with the Bickertonites, and he turned the mic over to, "Hey Chief, you like to talk," and he went straight into a vision story, and I just thought it was kind of a weird, tattoo kind of vision moment. And it just encapsulated kind of what you're talking about, where everything comes back to that vision. I just thought it'd be interesting to go back and look at that moment if you haven't seen it.
That's interesting, because I am just now, like as of a week ago, I wouldn't have known anything about Chief Mitiga. I think maybe on Culture Show,
We
that come
talked
up?
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe was explaining it. I'm like, you know that? And you're like, never heard of it.
Yeah, so I'm just learning this. Matter of fact, I just watched a video from Steve Pinegar right before we came on, explaining a little bit about that. So that very interesting, certainly. I don't know much else about it, but I would be interested to look in just a little bit to that. Do you know, Masterpiece? Do you know much about what's going on there?
I've been following it a little bit, and there's some other records that some people are promoting along with those, the Nemenha records, also supposedly from ancient sources that have been translated recently from here in America. And it's got the book of the guy who from the Book of Mormon who built the ships and sailed off somewhere. Hagoth, yeah. So they got the Book of Hagoth in there and several other things in there. So you can look up the Book of Nemenha, and it's all in there. There's some people that have been heavily promoting those, and the Chief Mitiga is supposed to start building temples. He's supposed to build a temple in the temple lot spot
in Missouri,
in just within the next year or two. And I'm like, well, I'm not convinced it's going to happen. It's like, well, you'll see it happening just in the next couple of years. I'm like, yeah, I'll see something in a couple of years. won't be a temple being built there.
Let me mention Susie's comment here. She's kind of talking about how, but the bishop is always telling us, that he was told that we're the right person for a calling. And I'll tell you this, and I've said this before. I was bishop for 5 years, and Hey, Mike, 100% of the time, we studied it out in our minds on callings. What do you think? What do you think? Let's do that. Let's do this. We'll move him there and do them. Finally get it all worked out. And then we would pray about it because we were told to. We'd waste all kinds of time, and we would go through every name, Heavenly Father, we want this for that and that for this. 100% of the time, it was always the way that we figured. It was never, no, I don't feel good about that. So either we were just super in tune to the Spirit, or we were so far out of tune that it didn't matter, or it was, that's what the Spirit is. But anyway, that's, I guess, for each one of us to decide. Mike, you look as good as we thought you might. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. There's a little mute button right there.
Yeah, my bad. New to this world
Oh,
here.
no worries, no
You
worries.
get it, Mike.
I
Yeah.
had to throw on some pants, turn on the lights.
Well, I'm glad I didn't make you mad too much, because I see some some
some
muscles
guns.
there. Yeah, some guns.
I'm on it.
Where are you from, Mike?
I'm retired military. I'm in the DC suburbs right now, but from Chicago. But as some of you know, I know Colch being military, like you say you're from somewhere, but I'm in DC, so I'm from DC now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, welcome. Colch, what did you think about these believe it or not stories, or do you have anything, did you ever hear a voice or receive a vision?
No, I never did. I never did. But I was going to say, there's right now, it seems like in Mormonism, there are some weird ass people, Nathan, just getting on the subject of Chief Mitiga. And Joe was telling me about some of these like Rise Zion guys, and he went into their Discord and he's seeing all kinds of crazy shit that they're putting in there. It's just like Mormonism is weird to begin with, but it's getting really weird.
Is
You
it?
get the avow groups like the Daybells and the Rose, and
Yeah.
there's always been weird things in Mormonism, but they come out of the woodwork at times.
hmm And I don't know if it's the internet and social media now, but it seems like it's more present. It's more in our face than it used to be. It used to be more fringe to come across those people.
Yeah, it's easier to spread your word when you got that, and Mormonism has a huge culture of crazy stuff to work with. So you've got this amazing history, and you can dig into the old teachings and find out some crazy stuff and pull them out and come up with some wild theologies.
hmm
The Daybells did this, and
Well, that's
and
what got the Lafferty brothers. You know,
oh
they were
yeah,
digging into the old stuff, and that kind of sent them down their crazy paths. And
yeah.
you can get nutty with Mormonism.
So I was going to mention in the comments, random dad stuff says I was the right one for Nathan. So this is my best friend, the drummer in our band, a current bishop in Florida, and
Oh yeah, Key West, right?
yeah, he gets up in my chats from time to time. If he turned on his camera, you would be like, no, that dude ain't no bishop. He's got beard and long hair. So he's a stud of a guy. But I would agree, random dad stuff, that when I said I'll be bishop, but I'll need him for my counselor. We had a blast. I mean, we had church parties back in the woods, and just all kinds of weird shit that we did. So, Coach, as far as what you were talking about, do you think a lot of this weird stuff is being kind of fueled by all of this last days talk that we're starting to get to?
Yeah, and that's always been a thing with this, Nathan. It's just the end of days. They're looking for, because end of days there's supposed to be like crazy stuff going on before Jesus comes back, and it's almost like they're pushing for that. They're like, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
There's even the white horse prophecy. They're wanting the country to go to shit so that the Constitution can hang by a thread so that the church can then save the country. So they have these ideas of things that are supposed to happen, and so they're like, well, what can we do to speed this up?
Yeah, they're scary. I'm a little disappointed your Baptist preacher didn't say they were going to save the Constitution hanging by a thread.
No, he's not heard that one. I do want to bring in Susie's comments, because if I have sounded condescending or discounting this, it's not my intention. Susie says, I personally still believe in promptings. It's saved me a few times in my life. I don't doubt that. And I'm being sincere and as true as I can. I don't doubt that. I would say, marrying my wife was a great prompting. I would say opening my eyes to the things that I now know in the past 2 years has been a great prompting. So, I respect that.
Yeah, definitely.
And honestly, it could be as simple as like our intuition is really good. That could be an explanation for it. Or it could just be that there is, like for me, I don't know whether there is or there isn't a God. I don't say there is. I don't say there isn't. So it's very possible that there could be something out there that kind of guides us and leads us at times. That's a possibility. I
Yeah,
don't think it's probable, but it's possible. So
right.
I don't close the door on that, Susie. Get your promptings, girl.
That's right. Um, any other thoughts from you guys on just some of these believe it or not stories? Was there anything that we shared today that you hadn't heard before? I would say that these visions in the sky that Master Peace shared, I think that's probably pretty new for most of us.
Yeah, I think I've heard those before. I was going to ask, has anyone actually ever met someone or heard of a story in the church where someone asked an angel to shake hands and the angel either did it or refused to do it?
I've been really disappointed. I've met a few people online that insist that they have seen angels or seen God, and I asked them if they did the handshake test.
Hmm.
And one guy said he was in the temple, so he didn't need to because Satan's
Not going to
people
appear there.
couldn't appear in the temple, and that he said also God and Jesus and Satan had all appeared to him at different times. But yeah, he never did the handshake test. I was really disappointed. And the other guy that said angels appeared to him, he didn't do the handshake test either. I mean, when I was a kid, this handshake test was, I was sure it was something I was going to need to know and I was well prepared for. So
Hmm.
if this was something I was excited and thinking, yeah, someday I'll see an angel and I'm going to use that handshake test. And the few people that I've ever talked to that claim to see angels, they've never done the handshake test. So I'm disappointed.
What about, were any of you taught that you could, so if an evil spirit did show up, you could just raise your arm to the square and tell it to kick rocks? Have you heard any stories of people who actually did that?
I was on my mission with a Chileno, a guy from Chile, and he told me, it was a first person account, that
Hmm.
he went out with his stake president right before coming on his mission to someone, and he said they went in, put their hand to the square, and he says I could feel my hand, like, you know,
Hmm.
being lowered. So I can only say that was his story, you know.
Yeah.
I was thinking of something. I've been going back through listening to some of Radio Free Mormon's earlier podcasts,
Hmm.
and I've been so interested. Okay, so you know the story about the milk strippings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've all heard Mike doesn't know about the milk stripping, so
I'm new to this stuff, so
oh, you're new to this.
I
Well,
so I was I'm a born again Christian, but I was baptized. It's gonna be a weird story, but I was baptized into the LDS Church. But it was, for me, it was just an exercise of learning about the church. It wasn't actually a baptism, so I consider myself a never mo. So I've been interested in the subject, but I don't know. I don't have the depth of knowledge in all this. That
oh
you get.
wow. I think, Mike, what ought to happen is you want to come on with me sometime in the very near future, and we'll explore your history a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too deep. I basically looked into how to remove my name from the church, and then I got sucked into the podcast world of Exmo.
Nice.
Well, anyways, yeah, the stripping story it's not that important right now. It's just that it's a faithful story that is told about pioneer days, and it's like every story that's out there, there's problems with it. And he points out, like, oh, it's not as cut and dry as we were all told. I'm not going to spoil it. You can go back and watch it. It was like episode 2 or 3 of his. And so there's problems, put it that way. There's problems, and there's a connection to polygamy in that whole milk stripping story. So that was cool. And then I just reposted one on my Facebook page, and it was one that it said how the Mormon Church lets me down, something like that, from Radio Free Mormon.
Hmm.
And he gives just a couple personal stories, and it kind of it's kind of like when you hear these faith promoting stories, kind of like what we've talked about today, and you feel like it's a personal experience, sort of like I just told you with my companion, put his hand to the square and he felt it. Well, what would happen if I told you more details about that story, right? And then we go and we find some other source somewhere that has all of the same details that he was telling me from his personal story. You see what I'm getting at here? That's what Radio Free Mormon brings out. He says, yeah, I've heard, this story and this story, and they told me that it happened to them and it was faith promoting. And then lo and behold, I go and find out how other people had the exact same story. And so it was really interesting. One of them was about someone calming the seas on their mission so that they could do a baptism in the ocean. And so they go through all the details about how it happened. And then lo and behold, he's flipping through the channels one day on TV and he comes across this same story exactly told as this guy was claiming that it was a first person account. So right. It's a really cool episode, but it speaks to this topic that we are so eager and hungry for these faith promoting stories. And I know my bishop friend, Random Dad Stuff, he says, oh yeah, we call those faith promoting lies or something like that. It's like, can that really be faith promoting though, if it's not true?
Well, RFM said he felt the spirit when he heard the story told. So he's like, how do you deal with that the spirit supposedly testified to me that this was true, and then I find out that the story was totally made up?
And that's kind of the point of the whole episode, really.
Yeah. There was someone in chat earlier. I'm not savvy enough to manage the video in the chat now. You guys are pros, but before somebody had said that they had been married in the temple, received a name, and then she and her husband went on a temple tour, and then they realized that the 3 other temples they went to all had the same names that day. And it would be very eye-opening if it were me to find out that my name wasn't special. It was just the name of the day.
Yeah, it's on a list. Everybody gets the same name.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is when my wife went through, when we got married, she went through the temple, and so she got her name. Well, her sister went through the same day as her older sister, just because and so they got the same name. And so my sister-in-law has joked that when we got to heaven, and the male, is we're told, would call his wife forward, to come forward to join him in the eternal, whatever. She's like, I was afraid that it'd be the wrong. I'd get up. We had the same name, and I'd get up when he's calling for my sister. So that was something that really bothered her. Oh boy, yeah. I think it's interesting that we do build our testimony on things that that end up either not being true or with a little bit of different perspective, we can write it off for elevated emotion, or like whoever it was in the chat a second ago, maybe some things were, inspired. But I guess what I'm getting at is this. When everything is a God thing, then nothing ends up being a God thing, right? So, all right, here's a quick little story. On my mission president made this big deal about, I had a prompting to take a pocket knife with me to this day, with me. So I put it in my pocket, and then later in the day, he needed to cut a hole in a box to lift it up. And he goes on to tell us how the Lord cares about even the small things in your life.
The tender mercies.
Tender mercies. And it's like when everything is a God thing, then one thought process later, you're like, well, how many people were getting molested that same day that he was busy telling you to take your pocket knife? Like, it just all of a sudden it can't work anymore. You know, it's like, well, how is that so important to God, but this isn't? And, you know, you start going down that road. So, any other people want to pipe up on some hard to believe stories, something that we have missed from history, or something that's been a personal thing? Coach or Mike, have you guys ever claimed that you heard a voice or anything like that?
No. The only
No.
time I ever heard a voice, Nathan, was when I was sleep deprived with my first and only kid, and was probably hallucinating and thought I heard a voice talking to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
hmm
Did it end up being a testimony thing that you would talk about, or like when
No,
you were in the church? No.
no, because I was inactive and I
Okay.
wasn't really involved in the church. I was just kind of like, who's talking to me? I took my dog out at like 5 in the morning and swore I heard somebody like talking to me outside the bushes, and it freaked me out.
Wow.
But that's the only voice I ever heard.
Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I would say I certainly believe in the Holy Spirit as a Christian. So I believe in being led by the Spirit or having intuition.
Yeah.
But it's if you know what, I guess what the good versus bad. If you have a good sense of that, you can discern, hey, this is a good path or this is a good step, and then you can say, hey, I've been led by the Spirit to take this good step. But whether that was an active voice of a spirit or whether that was just you discerning right from wrong because you've studied, you have a moral compass from Scripture or wherever. But certainly no, I would not say I've heard an audible voice or seen a pillar of light or anything as cool as Master Peace's photo.
I had a time on my mission, Nathan, where I thought I like read the mind of somebody else. So I don't know if that was a voice. I just had a thought come to me, and it was just this member that was like down on his luck, and I had the thought in my head that like he wants a blessing, and then we asked if we could give him one, and he's like, "How did you know I wanted one?" And I was like, "I read his mind. Look at that, the Spirit. It told me." But so, looking back on it, I think I was just good at understanding situations. I'd been in the mission for a long time. I could tell when people were down and when I thought they needed a little spiritual help. And that's just, I just think I read that situation, but interpreted it in a more faithful way.
All right. Who you got there, Mike?
Yeah, this is Ruby. Her full name, Rhubarb. There's a
nice
British cartoon called Rhubarb and Custard, and named after that. There's two other ones, but they're not as tall, so they don't get the camera.
Yeah, I had some instruction to full screen the pup. All right, let me figure out how to get back at it. All right. Well, this has been fun. Let's see. The story you made me you got your pup, Coach.
Yeah.
I've got some snakes over here. I'll go grab them in a second.
Wait a second. No, you don't, Nathan.
You got 3 of them.
I'm the corn snake.
Oh, yeah. So, I was going to say on my mission, I was with Elder Lee, and we were in an area that we were the branch presidency. There was no priesthood in our branch, and the closest town or other branch or ward would be 100 miles or something. So we were like in the middle of nowhere, no priesthood. We get off, we had knocked every door in the area. So we get off in the way outskirts of town. We knock on the door and this guy says, Elder Hinckley. He says, any relation to Gordon B. Hinckley? Just real weird in Spanish. And I'm like, well, yeah. And I'm thinking, how do you know that? And then he turns to my companion, Elder Lee, any relation to Harold B. Lee? And we're like, what is going on? And then he said, I can see that you both are wearing the garment of the holy priesthood, and then we were like, oh my God, like thinking the Lord has you know, like
It's one of the three Nephites.
yeah, it was the strangest day ever. But you know, talking about what your story, Coach, where you were like, yeah, I just kind of read the mind or whatever. We were like bought in, like this guy is going to be the branch president, and we both agreed that after 2 visits to him, we were like, this guy is not right. Like he's either dangerous or he's something, and we cut it off. So
Probably
you know.
smart.
Oh, this has been fun. We've got 82 people on here just listening to us shoot the breeze at this point. Once again, the invite's there, but I think we're almost done. If someone wants to come in before we leave, there's the link one more time. Coach, we had some people asking about if you were all right and everything went good. We know you had to cut your stream a little short the other day.
Yeah, my stream wasn't strong. I had to cut it short, Nathan. No, I was doing this whole I think a lot of people probably know that I was switching my name from Cultural Hall. And so I was going to do this whole episode where I went through that and I was going to kind of eulogize myself. And about 20 minutes into it, my kid got sick and came into my man cave where I record, and I start seeing all these messages that like, someone's behind you, you have a visitor, there's a child. And so I finally look back and he's like, Dad. Yeah, so he woke up with some tummy trouble. So we ended the stream, we took care of it, and he's all good. So I think Tuesday night I might try to give it a second run. But we'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll be tuning in. I was with you at the early part of your stream, and my wife had me out on the town, so we didn't catch that. So
good.
Your son was very polite and well behaved for having tummy trouble at the time. He waited very patiently to tell you.
He did. And then he it's funny because I'll do telehealth with some of my clients, and he was telling my wife the next day, oh, I interrupted Dad's session with his clients, and I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm not doing sessions at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, I was just doing YouTube crap.
So we'll talk about this real quick while in case there's anyone else that wants to come in the studio. But this person says you need to do a funny mission story episode, which we can definitely do. And then Grant says, you ever punch anyone on your mission? The only person that I came as close as I've never been in a fight. I mean, but I came as close as I have ever came with my final companion. You know, you'd think that I'd have it figured out by then, but we hated each other. And he was Latino, and he just didn't like the way that I taught. And we were zone leaders, and I didn't like the way he taught. And we fought and fought, but I didn't punch anyone. Ran from a couple guns. I think I've told that story a couple times. What about you guys? Any punching or getting violent or anything like that?
Nah, nope. I got all my violence out in my youth.
Nice. I pushed some people that were driving by me on a motorcycle, annoying me. I pushed them and made them crash.
Oh God!
I was having a really shitty day. And over in the Philippines where I serve, if you're a white guy walking around, everyone calls you Joe. So you just hear, "Hey Joe," like a million times. So I was having a shitty day. I was getting called Joe. These guys were like harassing us. They kept, as we're walking down the street, they keep like circling us with their little motorcycle. It's 3 guys on like a 50cc motorbike. And so I'm just pissed, and I'm watching them out of the corner of my eye, and here they come up behind me. And as soon as they go by and start yapping at me, I just give the guy on the back a little push, and off they go, and they crash.
Oh my God!
And then all 3 of them start coming at us to fight. But fortunately, I have like a 6'6" Samoan companion, and he scares them off. But yeah, that was the closest I got to getting into it with some people.
Wow. Carrie Holyoke says there used to be short faith promoting stories in the back of the Ensign magazine and on the back page of the Deseret News. Then they stopped printing them for some reason. Yeah, I think probably someone said, "What are we doing? Like, there ain't no way these things are true."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this person says, Susie says heretic. Yeah, you guys see that movie?
I still
Yes,
haven't. I
that
haven't
was a
seen
good
it yet.
movie.
I thought it was good. I mean, I liked all of the. I didn't like the ending part. Of
Don't
course,
spoil it
we're not
for
going to
me, Nathan.
spoil
I
it.
want to see it.
You know, there's just like this violence part, which I don't care about violence. It didn't seem realistic. I liked like the chatter between the missionaries and the guy. Like that part was interesting to me, but once it started getting a little far fetched, I was like, I don't know about that. So those.
Since your title of your video is believe it or not, I did a mission as a Christian and not a Mormon. And we walked the beaches of Santa Cruz, California. We were smart enough not to go in the houses, like the movie, of course. So a little safer when you're out on the beach. You can interrupt somebody and then move on if you have to. So
Nice.
Okay. Well, all right, guys. It's been a great almost 2 hours. So we want to thank Colch and Mike for jumping in here. We'll let you guys get back to your evening.
Thanks, man. It was good to talk with you. Good to talk with you, Ron. Ron and I were chatting on Facebook the other day.
And Ron, thanks for coming on last minute. I was brainstorming some stuff this morning. You said, "Oh, I've got some ideas." So Ron's always up for, and you know, there's nobody that knows Mormon history like Ron, as well as other interesting things. So thanks so much, and thanks to 82 people. If anybody hasn't subscribed to my channel, that would be cool. I'm trying to catch up with Colch.
You'll get there, man.
so we'd appreciate that, and some likes and all that good stuff. But thanks for chiming in and for tuning in, and we will talk to you soon, and have a good night.
All right. Take care.